Hello, and welcome to our second of three segments in our Meet the MS Business Analytics Program Director series, a series that's dedicated to conversations designed to provide an in-depth look at what makes the University at Buffalo's MS Business Analytics program and its people so special. My name is Aaron Shaw. I'm the Assistant Director of Recruitment for our full-time MBA and MS programs, and a little bit of a teaser here on your screen. I promise to explain more about this QR code here before we wrap up this particular segment. But I have the absolute pleasure of being joined today by one of those very special people, the MS Business Analytics Program Director, Professor Dominic Soletto. Dominic, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Now, for the audience, if you missed the first segment, Dominic provided us with a ton of great details about himself and his role as the MSBA program director. This time around, I'd like to shift the focus to the MSBA program as a whole. Are you ready to kick things off, Dominic?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. First up, compared to other programs across the competitive landscape, and I'm imagining that this landscape is only getting more competitive as the days go on, what makes this program unique?
Yeah, I think it's the business aspect of the business analytics. So one of the cool things about being a school management program is that we get to leverage all of the fantastic things the School of Management has to offer here at UB, being kind of the prestigious business school that it is. And so across the competitive landscape, one of our big kind of competitive advantages is that our program does, of course, cover the foundational elements and teach students these kind of core foundations of data analytics and the data sciences. But what it does is pair that through the lens, as you're going through your degree, of an industry focus, right? And so it's not just enough, right, to know and understand how analytics works, how visualization works, what data quality means, and all of those different things. How it's about how you can use that knowledge to help an organization, because that's really what you're going to be doing when you wind up in your eventual job. And so our program is really designed to enable you to experience these different industry domains that you might be interested in, right? So, whether it's finance or healthcare or supply chain operations management, etc., you can go in and say, I have this foundational knowledge, right, in data analytics that's gained through the program, and I've applied that through the lens of this domain. So when you go and talk to employers, right, you understand when they're hiring you for a job, what it is that you're going to be doing for them, how it is that your skills can be used specifically to help them in their industry, right? And I think that's a major competitive advantage. And the program has a lot of flexibility in the way in which students kind of approach that topic, whether it's just taking general courses in a specific industry or taking really heavily analytical kind of focused applied, as we call it, our applied domain kind of courses in those topics. And so I think that, creates an opportunity for our students to really leverage all that the School of Management has to offer kind of through the lens of their analytics journey.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So you alluded to it a little bit in terms of my next question, but quick elevator pitch here. Why should a prospective student get excited about this curriculum in particular?
Yeah, and so there are a couple reasons. I have a lot of reasons why people should be excited. Actually, in fact, I think it's my job to be excited about it. But one of the things that I really think, and I'll go kind of back to that whole competitive advantage conversation, just like, why should you take this degree over some other degree program within the university? And that's a valid question, right? We want to help you figure out whether or not this is the right program for you. But if you're interested in it's going to be like a high level, if you're interested in data, right? If the idea of like getting a new data set on some particular happening in the world and kind of taking a look at it and dissecting it and trying to gather insights and next steps for it is interesting to you, or if you've encountered kind of data in your job in a specific way that kind of you looked at it and been like, wow, we could use this, right? If that excites you, right, if the prospect of we're collecting mountains and mountains and mountains of data, and you get excited at the possibilities of what we can do with that data. How can we help the healthcare industry out? How can we improve patient outcomes or solve these critical problems with data? Then that is an indicator to me that this is the right program for you, right? And I think kind of comparatively to some of the other programs, when you talk about, say, some of them may be more on the technical side, where if you were wanting to spin up AWS environments and manage infrastructure for organizations, then maybe there's a degree program like MIS or something like that. But if specifically kind of you're looking at the possibilities of data, and you have that kind of drive to, I want to tell a story about this, right? I want to go in and say, yes, we collect this data about our customers or our patients or whomever it is, and here's how we can use it to advance the business or advance our patient outcomes or better the lives of our customers, and that excites you and kind of is interesting to you, then I think that it would be a huge motivating factor to you wanting to join this program. I think it's also exciting because there's a lot of flexibility in it. Like I said, you've got your core courses, but the sky is really the limit when it comes to what you do outside of that. You could do independent studies with faculty that you have an interest in working with, right? Perhaps, right? You could take these different electives that we have that cover different kind of topics. There's a lot that you can do, and working with our fantastic graduate programs office and our wonderful academic advisor, with the program, kind of allows you to navigate those, understand what it is that your end goals are, and kind of plan toward them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And you hinted at it again in this one for my next question. But if somebody's looking at comparing and contrasting, let's say, an MIS to an MSBA, what are some of the overarching themes in terms of differences there?
No, and that's a great question. I probably would have mentioned something like, hey, if you're looking at kind of going into this, when you're looking at things that the MIS program excels at, which is a lot of things, right? You've got IT project management, or you've got folks who are getting into engineering, design and development and software engineering and things like that. Those are the folks that kind of, or cybersecurity. I teach the cybersecurity courses that the MIS students take as well. And so, there are, pathways that would lead me to think that a student might be more kind of gravitating toward, on the MIS side, but, on the MSBA side, this is really kind of taking these cutting edge tools, these visualization tools that we have, these analytics tools, like your Power BIs, like your SAS Enterprise Miner, like your Power BI and all these sort of things, and taking the infrastructure that's really strongly built and managed by folks who are in the MS program, and leveraging that infrastructure that they've built, understanding how it works, but using it to drive your data and drive your insights, and understanding how to help organizations who might be struggling to understand what data that they have, right? A lot of companies collect a ton of data, they don't even know about it, or they don't understand it, or they don't understand how they can use it, and they lose out on these business outcomes. And so, there's a, and like I said, a student who gets excited about that, the opportunity to go in, understand a business, right? Understand how a business operates, help them to understand what data that they already have or that they can have, and then how can they use that to really, really drive the future, right, for them, and drive these outcomes, and use these predictive models, to take a predictive analytics course, right, or to really kind of drive these sort of data-driven outcomes and these analytical-driven outcomes that are the underpinning of a lot of the decisions strategically that organizations are making today. And so, if it excites you to kind of be a leader in that space, helping to drive the future decisions of businesses, small and large, using the data that's available to us now in our connected world, then that really is what would drive you to really be excited about this program, and kind of the possibilities for you within it.
Now, I've got a hunch that the answer lies with the keyword management here, but what about taking it a step further, comparing it to, let's say, a data science or a computer science program?
Yeah, and I think, this is, there are things that all the programs really do excel at, right? And so if you're looking at it and saying, you're incredibly heavy coding, right? Heavy into coding and programming and things like that. Those are the students that, not that you can't join this, right? But if that's your long-term interest, that all you want to be doing is, or not all you want to be doing, but one of the main things you want to be doing is coding and things like that. Yeah, but you can have those interests, but it's all about the management application, right? The business application has to excite you, right? And I say, the application of that in different scenarios, like if you can spot, like I said, one of our big kind of advantages is the applied domain, right? And so, as you're going through, if you want to take, let's just say you were comp sci or mathematics or something like that in your undergraduate, you really like it, but you want to go and take that into a management realm, right? And kind of have a path, that kind of take that managerial path in your education. Then you can go and apply that and say you're interested in healthcare. Come in and take our healthcare analytics course, right? Come in here if you're interested in marketing. Come in here and take a marketing analytics course or a supply chain analytics course or something like that. So you can take those skills, right? Because Python, I mentioned, coding, but our students do wind up learning these, right? At a level that makes sense for them. We're not all that we're doing is coding every day in Python, but we do know these things. Like we're learning these things. We're enabling students to learn these things. If you already know it, you may have a competitive advantage that you just kind of add that managerial flair to, and really kind of round out the application or the applied methodology of that to a business problem. And it's really about the business, right? It's really about learning how businesses operate and how to make them operate more efficiently or more cost effectively, or to make the customer, patient, whatever you experience better, right? Overall. And that's really kind of what we aim to do in the business analytics program.
Awesome. Thank you again. Okay. What, if any, are some misconceptions about the program or, business analytics programs as a whole?
Yeah, I think this kind of ties back to the differences between the programs, right? So one of the main misconceptions, there's actually there's two sides of the misconception coin. The first side is that it's all coding and algorithms. It is not. The business analytics program is not. We do leverage, some programming. You may be working in R or Python, like I mentioned, but it is not solely focused on programming, right? And coding and algorithmic mathematics, right? You do learn statistics. You do jump into these higher level courses that have these mathematical and statistical flares to them, but again, it's all about how that gets applied to the business, right? So you'll learn the foundational knowledge, you'll learn how to execute that and execute it through the lens of a business problem. And so one of the misconceptions and one of the things that I found, students apprehensive about, they're very interested in data, but they go, I'm not a programmer. That's okay, right? You don't have to be, right? Or I'm not great at math. I count on my hands sometimes because I'm not that great in terms of without a calculator and math. And it's about your ability to understand the concepts and apply them to business problems. And I think everybody, if you have that interest that drives you in data, right, and in visualizations and storytelling, then you can really succeed in the program. The other misconception is that the program is all visualization, right? It's all crafting fancy graphics and charts. So that's the total opposite end of the spectrum. So for folks who are, and we find that folks who have a coding background or a mathematics background get concerned that when we talk about business, it's literally just going to be kind of like PowerPoint and pretty graphics, right? And graphics and presentation is incredibly important. That's a huge soft skill that we learn. But for folks who come in with who have that misconception about the program, we make sure that this is well-rounded. You're not only learning coding. You're not only learning how to present. You're learning those two things, how they tie into one another and what all is in between that story, right? How does data get generated for an organization? Why does it get generated for an organization? How does it get stored? Who uses it? Why is it important? How can we leverage it, right? And then once we leverage it, how do we leverage that ethically, right? There are ethical concerns around data. How do we leverage that efficiently? And those sort of things are kind of really what we're focused on, and driving those, again, those business outcomes. As I sound like a broken record at this point, but those are the two misconceptions: either that it's super heavy on coding, 100%, math and coding, or that it's 100%, pretty graphics and visualizations. And neither of those are true. It encompasses all of these things in the space in between.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so for the audience, if you're not familiar, the MS Business Analytics program is the newest graduate program that we offer here at the University of Buffalo School of Management. And there's a reason. And a lot of that reason has to do with demand. And so what are the job demands right now and potential outcomes for students?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, really so I'm actually looking right now as we speak at the the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. government organization. So that's really relegated to the United States, but it could be fair weather kind of for what we're actually looking at, on a global scale. And we are seeing what they term as a much faster than average job growth outlook over the course of the next year. And all that means is that we're creating more jobs than we're filling at this point, right? And so what's winding up happening is the number of jobs that include, or that have kind of this data analyst, data analytics, data scientists, management analyst, business analyst. There's a lot of different job titles that kind of fit the mold, but regardless of what you call it, the field is growing. And it's growing substantially, and it makes sense that it's growing, right? And the reason why it's growing is because everybody realizes that, or a lot of businesses, most businesses are starting to realize that everything is data when you actually break it down in a business. So you are talking about things that we don't necessarily traditionally consider as data, like cybersecurity, for example. Like, we know underlying that cybersecurity is all about data, but it's a much kind of we don't think about it quite as much, that data is what drives everything. When we talk about detecting when somebody's trying to hack into an organization, that's driven by data, events that are generated when somebody tries to attack you, that a system analyzes and a person analyzes, perhaps to identify that this is an anomaly that needs to be corrected. And we talked about marketing, right? And marketing kind of analytics is something that is well established and well known, and we talk about quite frequently. Healthcare, taking that data that healthcare that healthcare organizations create and take in, and using that to drive and improve patient outcomes, right? And so it's not hard to understand. And when we really see these job growths and this job employment outlook growing in at this kind of category that's much faster than the average job market over the next 10 years, because, well, everything is data. And every time that we come up with some new technology, whether it's smartwatches or our cell phones, our tablets, our smart glasses, these aren't smart glasses, but everything that's internet connected generates data. Right? They generate these data points that we as data professionals can then use to help businesses, help consumers, help patients, and drive those outcomes. And so that need is going to grow as technology grows, right? As new technologies, enter the forefront of business and consumer life.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Thank you very much. Okay, final question for this segment, and it's student focused. So from your perspective, what are some trends that you are aware of that makes a student successful? And on the flip side of that, what are some pitfalls?
Yeah, so I want to say, like, a successful student is a student that comes to class and participates. And of course, these things ring true. If you don't go to class and you don't kind of participate, and that's that's tough. Successful students, in my mind, the most successful students, they leverage the things that the university has to offer to them. So UB as an institution, we're only here for a year, the MSBA students. It's a 1-year program, and you're busy. You're very busy, and it's tempting, to just keep your nose down in your books and keep into your class in your class. But there is such a wealth of of resources that the School of Management and the university at large has to offer you. Our most successful students are engaging with our Career Resource Center, right? Learning about these events, coming to these employer information sessions that myself, the other faculty directors in the Career Resource Center, and other folks in UB work to set up, where you can come and learn industry perspectives from professionals, right? Who are maybe they're not working in data analytics. Maybe it's a CIO panel, but from a business analytics perspective, you going in and listening to that CIO talk helps you to understand how IT works in that organization, in that industry sector. And understanding how that works makes you a better data professional, because you know what's important to them, right? And so leveraging these things makes for a very successful student, and one that remains successful in their engagement with us post-graduation as well. Because even as an alumni, all of these resources remain available to you. I don't disappear. You can reach out to me. We can have conversations and learn, about where you've ended up and what made you successful, so that we can turn that around and bring it back in, and use it as a feedback loop to the program. And so successful students, in my mind, they leverage everything the university has to offer to them. And that's not like, it doesn't have to be a self-directed thing. You could reach out to me and say, you know what, Dominic, what you and not you, Aaron, you know what the university has to offer, but you, the student watching this, or the prospective student, can reach out and say, you know what, Dominic, you mentioned this thing about what the university has to offer. What does that look like? Or where would you start? And I mentioned things like Career Resource Center, but it goes beyond that. And I'm always happy to have those conversations and work with you on that journey. You're not alone. And recognizing that you're not alone, and you have faculty support and peer support and alumni support and department support is just making sure you understand that and that you leverage those things.
Yeah,
that's what makes a really successful student. And success isn't in this kind of definition, isn't like just getting an A in a class, right? Or all of your classes. Success is, for me, success for a student is a student who, of course, excels in their academics, gets the job that they want, but is happy at doing it, right? Finds that pathway that is something that they find that's worth, doing every day, right? And getting up and working towards, and enthusiastically working towards, and working with, or in whatever role that they're in. So that's what a successful student is to me.
Great stuff. Thank you again for sharing, and a perfect teaser for our third and final segment that you can catch in our digital library. And I'll talk more about that later on. But that's going to do it for us here today in our second segment. Dominic, thank you again so much for providing tremendous insight on the MS Business Analytics program.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And to our audience, we're glad that you're considering the UB MS Business Analytics program, but we want to hear from you. We want you to stay connected, and you can use your cell phone's camera to access that QR code that's here on your screen. As promised, I brought it back. Doing so will give you the ability to do everything from scheduling a one-on-one admissions advising appointment to registering through a recruiting event, browsing through our website and social media. So as I mentioned, be on the lookout for that next segment, where we're going to take a closer look at how the MS Business Analytics program is further interconnected with the university as a whole, as well as the Buffalo community, as we focus on the bigger picture. But for now, take care and goodbye.